Hey guys and gals, welcome back to my show, Coffee with Lisa. So excited to have you here. Today I've got a special guest. I've got Gordon Tredgold. Now, for those of you who don't know who Gordon is and you're a leadership, by the time you're done with this show, you'll want to connect with Gordon. So Gordon is an active contributor to the Inc. Entrepreneur and Forbes magazines, as well as well-known in the world of leadership for his FAST principles. Welcome, Gordon.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
And for those of you who have never met me before, I'm considered the continuing education catalyst and expert, helping people like Gordon and others turn education into dollars. So let's talk a little bit more about some of the things that you've done, Gordon. First of all, I know that you are passionate about failure, and that may seem funny to some, but truly that's where you've built your whole enterprise and where you are today and the foundation of all your principles. Let's talk about failure. Why is it so important to the success of a leader?
Well, let me tell you why it was important to the success of me. So there are two types of failure. There's the iterative failure where James Dyson created 5,000 different prototypes of the cyclone vacuum before he launched his billion-dollar product. That's iterative failure where you try, you adapt, you try again. And that is an important aspect of innovation. But when I talk about failure, what I'm talking about is I'm talking about that catastrophic failure that kills careers. Things where a project goes so badly. I mean, IT projects over 10 million, 17% of them fail so badly they nearly cause the downfall of the company. And it's that kind of failure that I am passionate about. The ones that are going to kill your business, kill the company, kill your project, kill your career, that we have to understand what causes them and then how can we avoid them. And the reason I got into failure and understanding it was because what I found was when I came out of college, I was working in IT and I was a trainee program for 6 months, then a junior for a year, and then a programmer for 2 years, and a senior programmer for a year, and blah, 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 blah. And I thought,
IT credentials.
That's not the career path for me. I'm not interested in that. How can I shortcut this? And what I realized was there was a lot of projects that everybody tried to steer away from because they were complex or they thought it was going to fail. So everybody wanted to be on things that they knew were going to be a success from the outset. And that was a really crowded space. Plus, if it's going to be a success, whether you're involved or not, how do you get any credit for that? The way to stand out is to take those things on that everybody thinks going to fail and make it a success. And if it fails, it doesn't matter because you can say it was going to fail anyway. So I started getting involved in these projects that were difficult, that looked like they would fail, understanding them. And then I became an expert in the causes of them. And then that got me to become a good reputation as a turnaround expert, and that got me promoted quickly. I was put on projects that nobody else wanted or things that they thought were so difficult they really needed somebody who was either one smart enough or two dumb enough to take that down. And as I say, it allowed me to run $100 million programs, and that is a much rarer atmosphere to be aligning yourself with. And if you can have some success, that's really going to help you, become attractive to other companies, other big projects within the business. But to do that, you've got to have confidence in your ability to avoid these failures. And that's what I spent a lot of time doing. And there are two aspects to that. There's the people aspect of it. So you've got to be a good leader of people. But it doesn't matter how nice you are, how polite you are, if you're captaining the Titanic towards the iceberg. You've got to have that ability to deliver as well as be a good people manager. And it's that combination of two that will really help you.
Well, and it's really important, and we have Gabriella on the line here who's just said failing is important. Who knew? And I always often say, the best part of education is failure. And many of the experts that we have, including yourself at Extra Credits, have failed. They didn't get to the success where they are or to the knowledge of competencies of where they are today without actually having failure somewhere along the way. And those failures is really where collaboration and new ideas and innovative strategies come about.
One of the things, when I speak on this, one of the things I always tell people is that I remember my first ever $1 million project. And the thing I remember most about it is that it should have only cost us 200,000.
Well, again, sometimes the dollars that we lose in our genes is what drives us for different.
There's quite a few quotes on this. I can't remember all of them, but there's one that kind of sticks out, and that is that anybody can captain a ship on calm seas. It takes an expert to do it when it's stormy. And if you've never experienced failure, then I would say that you're not going to be prepared when things start to go south on you. You've got to have experienced difficulty in order to be able to handle it. And the more of these things that you've experienced of, the better prepared you're going to be the next time. Because failure can come from anywhere. I did one project that I was incredibly proud of. We had to deliver an electricity billing system when the government regulation changed. Nobody thought we could do it, and we delivered it for an April 1st go live. It was fantastic. And it was a new billing system, and we'd forgotten to order the stationery. So we had this fantastic IT system ready to go. It completely worked, but it ended up being delayed 2 weeks because we just hadn't ordered the paper to print the bills on. Probably the easiest thing in the world to get right, and we failed because of that.
Well, and I think too, with failure, especially for leaders who are, and it doesn't mean leadership at the C-suite level, we're talking about small business owners who act as leaders and what have you. If you cannot lead your team through the failure with the right processes, then how can you ever gain a competitive advantage or gain further in your career if you're an HR professional, for instance? Gabriella has a question for you, a comment and a question. It makes it harder to get up, not because you don't want to, but others tell you that you are stupid to even try. What do you think of that, Gordon?
So one of the things about me is that I started writing when I was 52. And that was because my English teacher told me that she was glad I was good at mathematics because I would never, ever do anything with the English language as long as I lived.
Boy, did you prove her wrong.
Well, yeah, but it took me 52 years to decide to ignore that advice. And now I've written 1,000 articles, 3 books, and I write for Forbes, Inc. and Entrepreneur. But we have to understand that a lot of time, what people are doing is they are projecting their fears, their shortcomings onto us. And we should just ignore them. And especially for something like that, give it a go. Publish and be damned. We do not know until we try. And the majority of people fail because they don't even start.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and analysis by paralysis is a fine example of, I don't believe that people are afraid of failure as much as they are as afraid of success. Would you agree with that to a certain degree?
I think they're two different things, and I think they both exist. And I think there are people that are afraid of success, and they don't know what they're going to do if they achieve it. They don't know what they're going to do in order to sustain it, because nobody wants to be that one-hit wonder who's a superstar one day and washing dishes at Starbucks the next.
Yeah, well, YouTube is a great example of things that happen, the one-hit wonders of the world. They make it on YouTube and they have this amazing success, but now what do you do with that success afterwards, and how do you sustain it?
I mean, I'm of an age where I actually danced to MC Hammer live. I mean, and he went from being well, there's no video of that, fortunately. He went from being a multi-millionaire to selling Hoovers door to door when he lost everything. So yeah, there is that fear of success, but I think fear of failure is the harder thing, and I think that fear of failure comes from a lack of understanding of how we're going to be successful. And if people can't see how they'll succeed, then why should I bother starting? This is going to fail. I mean, it's actually a smart thing to do. If you know you're definitely going to fail, don't even bother trying.
Yeah.
So what we have to do as leaders is we have to give them plans that will show them how they will succeed. I coached and the power of it is unbelievable. I did a 90-minute coaching session with a friend of a friend who wanted to write a book, and when I met with her, so I said to her, "So how big is your book? What's your objective?" She said, "I don't know." I said, "Well, okay, if you don't know how big it's going to be, how are you going to know when you're finished?"
Yeah.
She said, I don't know. And I said, okay. And I held up a copy of my book, Fast, 25,000 words. I had my other book, Leadership, It's a Marathon, Not a Sprint. I said, that's 40,000 words. I said, this is Lord of the Rings, Return of 50,000 words, 70,000. What kind of book do you want to write? And she said, well, the middle one, I think 40,000 words. I was like, okay, so now we know 40,000 words. And I said to her, how long do you think it will take you to write 40,000 words? She said, I don't know. I've been writing for 2 years. I said, well, it takes me personally 30 minutes to write 500 words. So an hour a day will get me through 1,000 words. And over 40 days, I'll be finished. So if you just work Monday to Friday for 2 months, you're done. Like, really? And I said, well, 1,000 words a day for 40 days.
Simple math.
Yeah, absolutely. And she said, okay. And I said, well, what does your book look like? And she said, well, I've got 10 areas of life that people need to. I was like, okay. So it's 12 chapters, intro, the 10 areas, conclusion. And those chapters need to be around, it's going to be 40,000 words. Those chapters are going to be around 3,500 words each. And she said, okay, I'm going to go write my book right now. And and 40 days later, she handed a draft of a book over to a publisher. Because the other thing I told her as well, she said, I'm not sure about how to edit it. And I said, well, you're the author. Get an editor. That's not your job.
It's not your job. And I think too, for leadership, it's really educating yourself in understanding where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are, and then making sure that you allocate the right people, the right experts in those areas accordingly. And that is the basis and the foundation for being a really good leader, is knowing where to lead and when to step back.
The challenge that we face a lot of time, and I'm going to be sexist now, I think, because it's based on my experience, but I think a lot of men struggle with this. And that is there are a couple of styles of leadership which I can't remember if it was a book or an article, but it was about Star Trek leadership. And we all start off as Captain Kirk, where we're man of the whole team, and we're the leader of that team, and we're the hero, and we're the one that goes and fights the alien on the planet. We're the one that fixes the problem. And that's okay up to a certain point. But once you're managing a big enough team, you cannot do everything. You have to let go, and you have to become Captain Picard leadership, where he would call them all into his chamber. He would say, okay, how are we going to fix this? They would all give him an idea, and he would say, okay, I like this one the best. Go do it. Make it so. That's what he would say. Make it so, not I'll get onto that then. And as leaders, we need to make that transition from being the hero, being hands-on, leading from the front, doing everything, to being hands-off and coordinating and getting the best out of people and assigning the best person to do it. But that requires a strong enough sense of self-worth that you can manage a team of heroes rather than being the hero. And a lot of what you would call the alpha male leaders
Well, and I think too, it's really surrounding yourself, understanding the skill sets of the people that are around you, recognizing what they are, and then putting them strategically in those positions that are
Yeah.
necessary so that your productivity and your revenue and your strategy and everything that's involved in business. And it really doesn't matter. I mean, you're talking a great deal about big teams, but even if
Yeah.
you're an entrepreneur that's watching, you still need to, you have your subcontractors, you still need to understand their levels of expertise and position that accordingly. That's leadership as well from small business.
And the other challenge with wanting to be the hero is you can only be the hero if you're the best, which then makes it difficult to hire people who are better than you are. And if you are the best in your company, then you are the limit of what that company can achieve. Whereas if you take that Picard style and you're creating a team of heroes, they can all be better than you. But it's the value that you bring is in that coordination and getting the best out, which is its own kind of hero role, and it has significantly more valuable because if I have to be the hero, I've only got two hands. I
Yeah.
can only achieve what these two hands can achieve. But if I can coordinate a team of 10, a team of 20, a team of 50, now there's no limit to what
Yeah.
I can influence and the impact and the results that I can achieve. So we've got to get out of our own way, out of our own ego, stop being the hero,
Yeah.
find ways for other people to be successful, and then delegate and allocate the task to the best person, and then off they'll go and go do it.
Absolutely, and extra credits faculty expert Cy Wakeman would agree. She talks a lot about the no ego policy in leadership, and would reiterate exactly what you're saying. We have a comment from our viewers. Coming from the Netherlands, they always say to other friends to be normal and not stand out. So how do you deal with that when you were born to stand out? And how often do you need to fail to become an expert like Gordon?
So what was the first part of the question?
The
I
first
didn't.
question was, she's from the Netherlands, and they say other friends
Do
always
we?
not to stand out. So how do you deal with that when you were born to stand out?
Well, I think it's a question of what do you mean by stand out. My dad always had a very simple approach. My dad always said to me, "Come in quietly, do a great job, leave to a fanfare." So if you do a good job, you are going to stand out by definition. But you also need to make sure you take credit and um, be clear about the successes that you've had. It's when you make a big fanfare before you've done anything. That's what causes problem because that makes you look arrogant. And we just need to be confident in our ability, do a great job, and let our results speak for themselves. And when it comes to failing, how often do you have to fail to become an expert? Well, you can read about failing. You can read my book on FAST, which explains what you need to do. And I'm not sure what the number is. And I actually worked in Holland, and one of my failures, I actually created a 50-mile tailback on the road from Rotterdam to Amsterdam when I closed the port of Rotterdam for 3 hours. Fortunately, my name didn't get mentioned, but it was our system that crashed and that. So we shouldn't be looking to fail. We can learn from other people's failures. Read books on it. There's a great website. If people want to connect with you, I'll dig out the link, and it'll talk about some of the biggest failures in history. The American uniform failure that cost the US government $6 billion, a helicopter failure where it cost them $13 billion. And when you look at the reason why that failed, it was because they put it out to tender after 9/11 and they went with the lowest bid. And the lowest bidder had never made helicopters, and it turned out to be more complicated than they thought.
Yeah.
Really.
And
No surprise there.
exactly. Well, and Kodak is a prime example. I mean, Kodak dropped the ball. I mean, that's, Netflix and Blockbuster. I mean, there's a number of failures in business that occurred based on, many things, obviously, but the other thing too is like you said, Gordon, educating yourself. And education really is, when you educate yourself, you turn failure into dollars. You turn your strategies into revenue. And education is key. And Gordon does have a course at extra credits that people can take based on his FAST leadership principles. So let's talk a little bit more about those FAST principles. F meaning focus, A meaning accountability.
Let me tell you where they came from. FAST came from being involved in failures and then looking at what are the things that cause us to fail. And the thing that causes us to fail, four key things: a lack of focus and a lack of accountability. And those two things kill our effectiveness. And then a lack of simplicity and a lack of transparency, which kill our efficiency. And when you are both ineffective and inefficient, failure is your destination. So in order to avoid failure, we need to be very proficient in focus, which is about the what. What's our goal? What does success look like? Are we sure that we're focused on the right things? And in today's world, we're under so much pressure, we tend to just dive in and start work as soon as we can. But if we get the understanding wrong, it can cause us to do the wrong thing. One of the reasons why I was never an A student in mathematics was because I would dive in and I would start answering the wrong question and get it right quicker than anybody else. But you get 0 points for answering the wrong question. Doesn't matter how well you do it. So we need to make sure we understand what it is we're trying to do, what does success look like, and we communicate it. Accountability, that's about who's involved. Have we communicated it to them? Are we clear about what we expect? And do we know how we're going to hold them accountable? People don't like to hold people accountable because it's uncomfortable. But there are some very simple things that you can do to hold people accountable. And then the F of FAST, that's about simplicity. How are we going to do it? And it's not about making things easier. It's about making them clearer and understandable. When I did my first marathon, my two best friends told me, "You're too fat, too old, too unfit." And when I explained to them how I was going to do it by running 15 minutes a day for the first week, and then 20 minutes, then 25, and over a period of 6 months, by increasing the run times by 5 to 10 minutes, I'd be able to run a marathon. They looked at me and they said, "We'll do it with you," because they could see how we're going to make a success. Had we made the marathon any shorter? No, we hadn't. But we had a simplicity of understanding. We could see how we would be successful. People aren't afraid of hard work, providing they know it's going to lead to results. And then the last part is about transparency. Are we clear about what's involved? Gartner says that projects end up costing 3 times the original estimate, and that's because they're like icebergs. We can see the third above the water and we dive in, but it's the 2/3 below that kill us. So we need to understand what's involved and then track and trace our performance. If you want to generate 120,000 in revenue, that means 10K every month. That means 500 every day. Did you achieve 500 a day? If you did, good job, well done. If not, how are we going to get back on track tomorrow? It's about having that visibility and honesty of performance. And that's what FAST is. It's simple, powerful, and
very effective. And you've used, and truly, I mean, throughout your career, I mean, you have a very impressive track record working with companies of all different sizes, millions and millions and millions of dollars to, now you have your own brand and your own business, and you're growing that to millions and millions of dollars as well, using FAST leadership principles. Yeah. But I think it's really important that people understand that, it doesn't matter to what size you really are and what profession you're in. You can be a career professional and apply those principles for the organization that you work with, because I know you work with a lot of HR professionals. And how does FAST apply to that?
So FAST, with FAST and corporation, so FAST, the reasons for failure are exactly the same, whether it's a personal goal, whether you're an entrepreneur, or whether you're a corporation. It's just the impact that is bigger if you're a corporation. And the thing about fast with corporations is that if you can set up your projects to be fast and your teams know what the goals are, if they know how they're going to achieve them, that's going to get them engaged. A lot of times people disengage because they don't know what it is they're trying to do. I worked for DHL and I'd only just joined and we had a big major change program. And I was new to the company. I had no clue what this was about. I asked a senior vice president, I said, could you just explain this to me so I can understand it? And he said, no, I couldn't. I'm not sure myself. And anyway, don't worry. There'll be another change along in 18 months. Understand that. So it's the lack of understanding which causes people to be disengaged. So for companies, if you can be fast, it will get your teams engaged. It will actually get them motivated and inspired. And once they become motivated and inspired, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. They achieve that goal, you give them recognition, and then they'll come back to you. It's like throwing a stick for a dog. They'll run after it, they'll bring it back, throw it further, and you just keep doing that until you hit a situation where you have a culture of success and a culture of engagement and continuous improvement. And this is where businesses want to be.
Gordon, walk us through a scenario that you occurred in your corporate life where you engaged your team effectively with a strategy that makes sense to anybody at any level.
So just repeat that last bit.
Can you talk about a scenario and experience that you had with a team, like a hurdle in the business where you actually engaged some of your FAST principles and share the experience of what happened?
So
result.
The thing about fast and the thing about simplicity, the bigger the team, the simpler you need to keep things, because as it goes down the levels, I don't know what you call it in Canada, but in England, we have a game called Chinese Whispers, where one person says hello, how are you, and by the time the 10th person repeats it, it's my name is Bill, I'm a policeman, and that communication and the level of engagement disappears. So I ran a program where we had a goal to cut 50 million from operational budget, 50 million a year. And it was a 300 million budget, so it was a meaty percentage, but we were doing that through some degree of outsourcing and consolidation of suppliers. And we also had a goal. The goal was to improve operational performance, so cost down, revenue up. And when I took over that department, when I looked at what the goals of the team were, it was things like, and I hate to say this to you, it was we need to make sure that we have everybody gets their right number of training days. So my team's bonus was based on, did their staff get enough training? Their bonuses were based on, I can't remember what the other one was, but nothing to do with cost down and performance up. So when I came in, I said, okay, there are two goals we're going to focus on. One, we need to save 50 million. And two, we need to improve operational performance by 20%. Those are the only two goals. If you're doing something that doesn't lead to better performance or lower cost, stop doing it. You are not adding value. And this is what we need to focus on. And then I tied everybody's bonus to a reduction in revenue, a reduction in cost, and so that 20% increase in performance. So now everybody is aligned. We're all pulling in the same direction and the right direction. And as soon as you do that, well, people say, well, what do I need to do to drive costs down or improve performance? They'll start to ask questions because it's clear to them that the things they're doing are not going to achieve that. I did some work with a university where they had 5 departments, 5 goals each, 25 goals overall. And working with them, I couldn't see how they would fit together. And I said, this makes no sense. And they said, are you suggesting we have one goal? And I said, yeah. And I said, what would that be? And they said, we're in the top 50 universities in the country. So we wrote that down. And one of the ladies said, if we make that our goal, I have to stop doing 50% of what I do because it's that goal. It's like, okay, so what should I do? It's like, well, stop doing it. If you're pulling in the opposite direction, and within that company, just by having that one goal, everybody could see what they needed to do. And it was the same with the company I was working at. Got everybody moving. And once you start to make progress towards it, people start to go, wow, this is working. We can see the progress. A lot of times in companies, and I don't like this about the HR department that I was working with, they had a view that the top 20% of the people do 80% of the work. Now, that might be true, I don't know. But if we could get the bottom 80% to be as productive, we can now do 500% of what we were doing before. So if we get everybody moving in that same direction, you'll start to see amazing results happen. It will get people motivated and they will continue and drive towards it. Nobody comes to work wanting to go home thinking, well, that was a waste of a day. Everybody wants to go for a winning team. So set them up for a win, move them forward, get them making progress. When you do that, they become motivated. It builds self-esteem. You recognize it. That makes them want to repeat it. And then corporations can really start to achieve amazing results. And what we did was we set that target of saving 50 million. We hit the 50 million after 2 years, and over a 7-year period, we actually saved 350 million from operational performance. And our original goal that was set before I was there was that we're going to save that money and we're okay for operational performance to drop by 5%. That's kind of the cost, the offset of the cost. I didn't believe that because we were performing badly. I knew we could do better. And we actually improved our operational performance by 50 to 500%, depending on the area you're looking at. We took on-time delivery from 35 to 95% because we got people focused on it. We got them looking at what were the things the cause for fixing, tying their bonuses to it, helping them start to achieve some momentum, and then it just snowballs and you achieve amazing things. It's like in football, you'll see a new coach coming and a team that was 0-16 all of a sudden go to be 12-4, 13-3, because you've made some small changes and everybody buys into it. And now you've got a winning culture, you've got a culture of success, and you're off to the races.
Well, and I think too, I had an earlier conversation today with one of the faculty at Extra Credits, and we were talking about how people are busy, but they're not productive. And so it's really what you're talking about. It's being about being productive with the hours that you are at work and being motivated towards one consistent goal as a team.
So you've now given me a challenge. I need to think of a word, because we have procrastination, which is I'm going to put off being successful by finding something else to do. But there's that actually doing something that actually is that something else to do. I'm going to create a word that means that, busy but not productive. And the worst type of that is when other people make you busy and not productive. That is criminal. It's bad enough when you do it yourself, but it's even worse if you've got a team that you make busy but not productive. We need a word for that.
We do need a word for that. So now tell me, where do you believe training fits in? We talk a lot about e-learning. You've got e-learning, you've got, online learning. Where does the training come in that's effective from a leadership standpoint all the way down an organization?
So I think excuse me. So I did quite a bit of leadership training on my career, but it was more management training. So a lot of the things that I learned, I actually learned through experience, and some of which were bad experiences. And I think this is where training comes in. If you've got the right training and you can learn from the right things from the right people, it can fast track your understanding. Nobody needs to learn that you need to pack a parachute better by jumping out of a plane with a parachute that doesn't open.
Well, maybe some people do, but they don't live to tell about it.
Yeah, so, well, I think a lot of these things, we should learn from the experiences of others, and we talk about that a lot. And I worked in IT, and I must have written throughout my career 30 or 40 lessons learned reports, but I don't ever remember being given a lessons learned report. They're written and filed for, I don't know who reads them, and we put them to one side, and we need to learn these things. And I think this is where training comes in. And ideally, what we want a mix of training and then coaching that supports that training. Putting in an environment where you have the opportunity to try things, be bold, because you will get it wrong, and there's nothing wrong with that. Every time you want to break the world record in the high jump, you're probably going to fail two or three times. But if you don't give it a shot, you're never going to get over. So we've got to be bold and create a safe environment. And I think training bridges that gap, and it can shortcut the learning period, because learning.
Valid point is that there's a lot of training options out there. There's a lot of e-learning and online and Udemy and all, extra credits and wherever you go. But it's really important, and I've said this before, to make sure that who you're getting the training from is qualified to give the training and has walked the talk. I mean, that's why your training is so successful. You walk the talk, you know what you're talking about. You bring that experience into the training world so that we don't have to make those mistakes as leaders.
So back in 1994, I was working as a project manager for London Electricity, and I delivered a program for them. And that was the first time I was actually in charge. And at the end of that 18-month project, they said to me, what we want to do now is we want to put you on the project management training, which, nice, but it would have been even nicer if you'd have given it to me before. And I went into the training, and the project management trainer said, okay, now he knew who I was, and he said, I don't need to answer, Gordon, let's let everybody else answer because you've more experience than them. And I want people to tell me, what are the top reasons projects fail? And people were like, budget, lack of scope, lack of resources, blah, 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 blah. And he wrote all these things down, and he had 10 of them. And I think this was matching his 10 reasons why projects fail. And he said, brilliant, this is great. And then he looked at me and he said, Gordon, do you have anything else to add? And I said, yeah. And he said, what? And I said, people. And he said, what do you mean? I said, one of the number one causes of failure is people. If you don't get the people right, it doesn't matter about everything else. And he said, actually, you're wrong, because I'm in project management, we don't deal with people. And I said, well, thank you very much. I don't need to do this course then, because every single thing, every challenge that I faced was people related. How to motivate people, how to handle people. Excuse me. I remember just a second. I remember my first day on the job as program manager. Somebody I worked with for 2 years. I made them my test manager, replacing me, a lady, and you'll understand why that's relevant in a second. And my first day project manager, 9 o'clock, I went in, she came to me and said, I need to speak to you right away. Took her to the office, sat down, I said, okay, I was the test manager before, there's nothing we're not going to be able to solve. What's the problem? She said, I have a lump in my breast and I think it's cancer. What should I do? I'm an IT guy. That was the first problem I had to deal with.
Yeah.
And it was people related. And project management courses don't teach you about that. And it doesn't matter how good the plan is. It doesn't matter how good your risk log is. If you don't know how to manage and lead people, you're going to fail. And this is why it's important to get the training by the right people. Somebody who follows the book and doesn't understand the impact that people have has no right teaching a course on project management. Very sorry to say that, but I stand by that. Those are the things that have caused me and multiple projects to fail, and these are things we need to master.
Well, and that's the premises behind everything that I do and we do at Extra Credits. It's all about the right education. And education should turn into dollars and hands down. So it is really investing in yourself first and foremost with the right education and trusting the education to help you with the problem or the solution that you're trying to find.
There's a lot of people teaching people to swim that have never been in water.
Yeah. It's funny, I had a conversation one time with one gentleman. He was trying to sell me on something. I won't say what it is. But anyways, and I said to him, oh, okay, great. Well, what are your sales? And he looked at me and he said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, if you're telling me that this service helped you and it's going to help me make $1 million, you must be making $1 million. Well, no. I said, well, then I guess I don't need your service. Like, it was dumbfounded that I had actually asked him how much money he was generating with the service he was trying to sell me, but he wasn't making any money.
Yeah, I had exactly the same, but with social media. Let me help you with your social media. How many followers do you have? I have 5,000. I have 500,000. I think I need to be helping you because you've clearly got no clue. And it's that kind of that, but you see a lot of that. At the moment, I'm getting it all the time. Every time I go into YouTube, there's one particular person who his videos for I will make you a consultant, and him telling me how much money he earned by the age of 26 coaching people. I mean, yeah, brilliant. Thanks. No. I don't know what you're going to teach me at all. And especially in things like, leadership. I don't dispute that, there are child prodigies. I mean, Alexander died at the age of 28 and he created a huge empire. So clearly knew something about leadership. But, when it comes to working in corporations, leading large teams, you don't get put in charge of a team of 1,000 people at the age of 23. I've led teams of 10, 50, 100, and 1,000 people, and that takes a while to grow into that. And you want to be listening to people that have experienced those things, because they're going to be able to talk to you about what really happens. And this is why when I say when you're leading a team of 1,000 people, simplicity is absolutely paramount, because otherwise, if it isn't, you've just started the 100 meters for people with no sense of direction, and 1,000 people have just run off in every single direction.
They're busy. But they're not productive.
Get the back. You've got to keep it simple. You've got to be clear. You've got to be repeating it all the time. We used to say all the time, we have two goals: save 50 million, increase performance by 20%. Save 50 million, increase performance by 20%. You couldn't get away. Every single person in the department of 1,000 knew our two goals, because it's important to do that. And a lot of times people will just say, create a big goal, but they don't talk to you about then how to communicate it, how to filter it down, how to make it relevant to the people on the shop floor. What does that mean to them? Because if you can't do that, then it's not a goal. It's just something that management's doing.
Well, and I think we've talked a lot about corporations that are, $300 million plus with teams of 1,000. But you and I have had conversations before in the past, offline obviously, about how the FAST leadership principles really apply to small business. You don't have to be leading a team of 1,000. You could be in an MLM, for instance, and you're leading a team of 20 people. The principles still apply. The scale of the project is what's different.
And actually, it can be very difficult leading as an entrepreneur, because quite often, as you say, you're leading suppliers. And you've got to hold them accountable. You've got to motivate them. You've got to get people who are running another business to buy into your business and want to deal with you. And it can actually be more important for them, because within a corporation, you have power of hire and fire. So people will follow you to some extent anyway. But when you're an entrepreneur and you're dealing with some of your suppliers, they have choice. They can go anywhere. And I've used the same principles. Working with companies like IBM, Accenture, AT&T, and getting them engaged and holding them accountable, because your team is not just the people that report to you in a HR perspective. Your team is everybody that you need in order to be successful.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that can be an outside supplier. It can be people all over, and we need to be able to lead them as well.
Well, and I think too, part of our success as effective leaders and good leaders is also celebrating the internal communication of the wins that occur. And what I mean by that is, talking about, the initiatives that are taking, that are happening internally amongst the team, not necessarily the wins of the revenue that's occurred, but the small wins. And you often say, aim high, start small, celebrate, rinse, repeat. And I love that, because that can be something that can be engaged from an internal perspective, and grows astronomically from there.
One of the things I try to explain to people, and they don't always believe it, and that is that if you want to create a culture of success, a culture of winning, it starts with a culture of recognition, because we do not succeed first time out. And in order to get people to try again, we have to recognize their efforts. What gets recognized gets repeated. And when I tell people that, they say, "Oh no, you're crazy. Why would we do that?" But every person that's watching this talk who has small children knows that the first time that child took 2 steps and dropped on its bum, they cheered. Did that baby just run a marathon? No. Did it break the 100-meter world record? No. Yet we applaud, we cheer, we bring people to see it. We encourage them to do it again. And this is why we have to celebrate that recognition. And it starts with effort. And then what you do is exactly with the baby. 6 months later, you don't applaud if it takes 2 steps. You've got to keep seeing those progressions, keep raising the bar, and celebrating every progression. And if you do that, people will grow with that recognition. And a culture of recognition will lead to a culture of success. And if you don't create the culture of recognition, you will have sporadic success. People will become disengaged, and your best people will leave and go to where they can get recognized. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's all about self-esteem. After we've got the money, it's then about how we feel about ourselves and the job and how we're treated. So create that culture of recognition if you want to create a culture of success.
And Gordon, before we leave, because we only have a few minutes left, but I just wanted to ask you, what is your thoughts when it comes to, there's lots of discussion that's often occurred about investing in your people. And when you invest in your people, it's great because you increase productivity, but then you're investing in your people and they're leaving. How do you stop that?
And then,
Pardon me?
Did you say?
Yeah, you make the investment in your people, whether it's training, whatever it happens to be, and then they leave. Don't you believe, I mean, I have a belief behind that. I believe that it's because you haven't created a culture that wants them to stay.
So I agree with you, and I have a slightly different perspective of that. And when I worked with Henkel, I ran a leadership improvement program, and I brought in some external consultants to work with me. And I remember we were on a 3-year leadership program. We wanted to roll out what was our leadership model, so that everybody understood what good leadership was like. We had a clear picture. We all understood it. We could hold each other accountable. And when I gave that talk, I said, this is a 3-year journey, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to start every 3 years. And in my heart, what I hope is in 3 years' time, none of you people are here. I hope that you've all been headhunted to go and lead elsewhere, because that will show that the things that we've done are the right things that we've created good leaders. So for me, when I think about what I do, it's about stewardship. It's about making sure that when I leave, the things are better. And if people become better, then why shouldn't they move on to better jobs? Why shouldn't they have the opportunity to get promoted? I should be encouraging that, because if I do that, I'm going to attract the best talent. I'm going to have a continuous pipeline of good people who are going to come in and know that after their time with me, they're going to be better. And some people will stay, and that's okay. Some people will figure that this is the level I want to be at. But others, why should we hold them back? If we don't have a position that we can move them into, then we're not being fair on them. And people will see that, they will recognize it. And I had people that left and came back. Half of my senior leadership team got promoted into positions that were the same level of myself in other departments. And I actually saw that as a success. People used to say to me, how are you going to replace them? I've created a pipeline. We have talent development. And it's part of life, it's kind of a catch and release program. And if you want
great perspective though that you take on that, because it really makes sense in how you've articulated that.
Well, you've no choice. If you make them better, they're going to want to move on to better things. And if you've got an opportunity, give it to them. If you don't,
absolutely.
Encourage them. And I think the other thing as well, is that it's a quote from Star Wars: the more we tighten our grip, the more they slip through our fingers. So if we try and keep hold of them, we'll lose them anyway. So open the cage door, let them feel free to come in, learn, progress, move on, stay, whatever it is they want to do. And that way, what you'll find is that if you hold on to them, when they leave, they'll hate you. If you're open, there's going to be a sense of loyalty. There will always be loyalty, or in the main, always be loyalty. And if they move to another department, they'll spread good news about you. If they go to other companies, they'll recommend your company to the employees there if they're not happy. So, build that loyalty, build that brand. Look at, I'll give you a really good example of this. How many companies ended up taking on executives from GE? GE were noted for the best leadership training in the 90s, and many of their senior vice presidents went on to be CEOs at other companies and board companies, and that was like the GE brand. We create great leaders. We can't accommodate them all, but we pass them on, and they became recognized as the number one corporation for leadership. Not as much today, I don't think. I think a lot of companies have caught up, but that was their brand. So
and it's all about building profitable business relationships and sustaining those relationships, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. It's about sustainable. Sometimes people confuse sustainability with stagnation.
Or compliancy. They're complacent. Wow, complacent is a good one.
Yeah, complacency and compliancy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to thank you very much, Gordon. Our time is up for today. And for those of you who are just watching or just tuning in, the YouTube channel at Extra Credits will replay this, as well as you can always go back onto Gordon's feed at facebook.com, Gordon Tredgold, or on my feed at Facebook, Lisa Patrick BFD, or on the Extra Credits channel as well. Thanks again, Gordon. I appreciate all your time and the opportunity to speak to you about fast leadership. And thanks for everybody tuning in today.
My pleasure. As you can see, I'm passionate about sharing.
Just like you are looking for access to the world's best experts and the most engaging learning experiences with skill development that's proven and relevant to the advancement of their career, all while they earn their continuing education credits anytime from anywhere. The challenge, though, is that there is no one single place to learn and earn your continuing education credits at the same time. That's where Extra Credits can help you. You'll have access to the world's top performance experts like Grant Cardone, rated one of the top 10 most influential CEOs in the world. Tom Hopkins, sales guru, whose high-energy seminars have been attended by over 5 million people across 5 continents. Patricia Fripp, an award-winning keynote speaker and speech coach to Fortune 500 executives. Dr. Tony Alessandra, recognized as the world's top communication guru and author of 29 books. Shep Hyken, customer service expert and the New York Times and Wall Street Journal best-selling business author. Mike Staver, leadership expert and coach who has been recognized as one of the top 10 trainers in the world. And many more. Here's how it works. Choose a course from your very own catalog of pre-verified accredited courses. Master the skills necessary for you to advance your career and boost your income, and automatically receive your certificate of completion, specific to your designation or certification. Extra Credits makes your professional development and earning your continuing education credits that easy. No more searching, no more uncertainty, and no more unnecessary travel. You'll have access to the world's best experts, the most engaging and interesting content, and we guarantee your recertification credits. Start here at extracreditsvt.com.